So I've just realised that it was 10 years ago since I got diagnosed with peripheral artery disease, meaning that in this leg, got a completely blocked artery, and in this leg, partially blocked. Um, and I remember at the time I was really struggling with chronic fatigue syndrome. And also, my wife and I were in the process of arranging our wedding. So it was a bit of a crazy time. And then this happens. And I remember just thinking, what I know this is like the worst thing that could happen to me at the moment. I'm dealing with all these things and now this. And obviously, if I've got blocked arteries in my legs, what about other parts of my body? Had that worry. And it kind of, although at the time it seemed like devastating news, it actually was one of the best things that could have happened to me because it sent me down a rabbit hole, sent me on a journey, the journey that I've been on for like like literally the last 10 years now. I literally changed the way I was eating completely because as I started researching the medication that they were suggesting at the time that I should take, which was statins and aspirin, but researching statins, which I'm not going to talk about that here, but ultimately I decided not to take statins against the doctor's wishes or recommendations. But in that research, it just led me down this rabbit hole that led me onto a complete 180 in the way that I was eating. So with my chronic fatigue syndrome, because I was really struggling with it, I was trying, like I was hoping that one of the levers that would help me with that would be a diet. So I was trying to eat as good a diet as possible, but it didn't help. My chronic fatigue was still getting worse. And instead of questioning that, I just tried harder and become more stricter. Right. So that was like the mainstream advice that I was following. So reduce red meat, reduce saturated fat, replace saturated fats with vegetable oil, seed oils. Eat plenty of fruit and vegetables, eat a rainbow, 5 a day, all of that jazz. I then discovered um, the low carb and keto diet, which was a complete 180 to the dietary advice that I was given. But at the time, I just remember thinking, what have I got to lose? My life is miserable as it is. Whatever, I'll give it a go. And very quickly, my health turned around. So with with that, I then went through a stage, and I've talked about this before, but I'll briefly talk through it. But basically, um, I went through these phases of being really confused because I'm now eating these foods that it's like lots of red meat, lots of saturated fat, no fruit at all, a lot of vegetables cut out. It would only be like non-starchy, cruciferous vegetables, and I just went through this really confused stage of being like, why do I feel amazing? Why have all of these symptoms? Um, why have all these symptoms kind of gone away completely? Yet I'm eating all the foods that I shouldn't be eating. Then, as I was thinking about it more, I started to realize, well, hang on a minute. The foods that we're told we should be eating are modern day foods that we would never have had before. Whereas the foods that we're told we shouldn't eat are foods that would have been around for hundreds of thousands of years that I'm pretty sure we would have eaten, our ancestors would have eaten. Um, then I went into the phase of like anger because I've realized that the dietary advice that we've been given, isn't in alignment with how humans have eaten for millennia. So I went through all of these stages. Um, the thing that I then remember is like thinking, well, how can I? It kind of opened up a can of worms because it made me start to really question things and it reframed my way of thinking about a lot of stuff because we we are so far removed from how our ancestors lived, how we lived as wild humans. Um, and it not only through from food, but you know, sleep and community, like our connection with other people. It's just so different. And I think that these things have a dramatic effect on our physical and mental health that I'm now in the process of trying to figure out how to incorporate those things into my life while still living in this modern world, because I've got a full-time job and I need that job. I need the money. I need to support my family. I need to pay for the roof over our heads. Um, yeah, I wish I could just pack up and go and live on a remote island somewhere and have no technology and live more in alignment with my wild human side. But it's not really an option unless we're going to completely disregard all of our close family and friends and things like that. And as much as I would love to live a little bit more wild, like I wouldn't mind living in a woods or something like that. In actual fact, I don't know if I really want to, because I do enjoy the life that we have and the things that we have. So the question is then, how do I incorporate a more wild side of living, like more in touch with our ancestral kind of way of living, whilst living in this crazy modern world that we find ourselves in today? So that's kind of like been my journey for the last 10 years, and will continue to be so, because I'm still trying to figure this stuff out. And that's what I want to document here, really, is my progress on that. But I remember as well that when I transitioned onto this newfound diet, this newfound way of living, eating, sorry, uh, it was difficult in many respects. It was difficult for my family, because all of a sudden I'm eating this way and it's different to how they're eating. I do all the cooking, so I'm having to do separate meals, because my wife she wasn't overly keen on transitioning over to this diet. She wanted to carry on. She wasn't struggling with sort of the health issues that I had, so she was happy carrying on eating the stuff that we was eating before. On a Friday night, we would typically, my wife and my daughter and myself would go and treat ourselves to a takeaway. We'd have takeaway night. And I said, no, I'm not doing that anymore. And I remember that it seems like such a simple thing, but I remember at the time it was like a big thing. Like it was a big issue. It caused quite a big upset. The fact that I had no issues with them eating. I would actually go and buy it for them, but then I would go and cook myself steak and eggs or something. And yeah, for a while it was like, I don't know, almost to the point where I was like, I don't know how we're going to get through this. And it seems so silly to say that now, because it's not a big issue anymore. But I remember at the time it was actually an issue. It was a thing. So it's hard when you make these transitions for your own health, that it's not only yourself that goes through these challenges, but it's your family and things like that as well. People don't like change, I guess. So I wish I had documented the last 10 years of my life, because it would have been great to see that back, and it would have been great to share it on this channel, and to see the changes, the challenges that I had along the way. But I plan to document it for the next 10 years, because there's still certain things that I struggle with. For example, when when obviously I have to work, and I'm quite fortunate that I work in the office maybe a few days a week. I can work from home maybe once or twice a week, and then I work in London out on sites for a couple of days as well, 1 or 2 days a week. So it's quite varied. But like in the office, it's a weird situation, because I actually do like being in the office, in as much as um, there's people there, and even though that I might not even talk to people on some days because I've got my head down, I'm just doing my work. But just having those people there is quite a nice thing. Like if I work from home and I'm on my own, it can be a bit lonely. Even though I prefer to work from home, in as much as when I look out the window, there's trees, I can go for a walk, and I'm in the woods within a couple of minutes. I prefer that side of it. So it's quite nice to be able to do that. But when I'm in the office, having some people there is actually quite a nice thing. But it's What I don't like about it is the fact that we have got windows, but at a certain time of the day, the sun comes over the building and starts shining in, and people that are by the windows, they can't see the screens, so that we've got blackout blinds. So about midday, those blackout blinds come down, and from then on, I don't know what's going on outside. I've got no outside connection at all, other than I'll make an attempt to go outside. So if I need to make a call or something, I'll perhaps pop outside just to get a bit of sunlight. And so I don't like that part of it. Like, I feel like really cooped up, and I know that sunlight is very important for our circadian rhythm. And being stuck inside with artificial lights they just wreck your health. So I don't like that side of it. So I do try to get out for my lunch break and go for a walk around the block. But I'm in a industrial estate, so the surroundings are not great. Whereas where I work from home, I can go in the woods and I can walk around in the woods for an hour or so. Um, Definitely prefer that side of it. And in London, I like that as well, because London's an amazing place, lots of culture. I mean, it is a city, so it's not exactly out in the woods, although there are some parks and stuff. But it's quite nice to walk around London. I now, if there's any journey that's once I'm in London, anything that's kind of under an hour that I'm not in a rush for, I will walk it, because it's just nice. Like, you see some amazing sights. So very privileged in that sense. But again, that's me trying to incorporate some kind of like connection with the kind of our ancestors in our modern world. Um, So, I'm trying to do these things. And I would love to. I always sort of say to myself, right, in the morning, I'm gonna go out, get that day, like that you hear it all the time with like a lot of health advisors that are like, go get 10 minutes of sunlight, get outside for the first 10 minutes of your day. And it all sounds amazing. And, you know, I would love to be able to do it, but I just struggle to actually implement that in my life. I would, I want to do it. I want to be able to figure out how to do it, and and uh, and so I'm going to strive to do it. But sometimes it's just not that easy at all. And it's the same with like, I'd love to be like really clean on my diet and stuff like that, and I am generally pretty good. But things like socially, for me, I used to love drinking beer and ale with my friends. When I go out, if I don't have a drink, I tend to struggle socially. Um, I just enjoy it when I'm out and about, at an event. I like to go to like dance events, raves, and things like that. And I struggle, like I couldn't really do that and enjoy it in the same way if I didn't have a couple of drinks. So I do have a few drinks from time to time. I don't drink anywhere near as much as I used to. If I have maybe 4 or 5 drinks in a month, then that's that'd be quite a lot for me. But yeah, I'm not perfect. I do struggle to be perfect. I would love to be perfect, but it's just sometimes it's just not feasible. You see these some people like Paul Saladino is an absolute beast. How he maintains that kind of lifestyle is amazing. But for me, I just can't I just physically can't do it, it just doesn't fit in with my world. And I'm not willing to just pick up sticks and go and move to Costa Rica or whatever, as lovely as that would be. But I've got too many commitments here. And maybe in the future, but at the moment, I enjoy my life there. I enjoy where we live. I enjoy my house, my family. And so, so my mission is just to incorporate more of our wild side. I keep saying wild side like I'm going to put on a loincloth or something. And that's not what I mean. But, more like ancestral, how we used to live as humans, trying to incorporate that more into like our modern lifestyle. That's what I want to try and figure out, and I think that would be helpful for others as well, because if we can figure that out better, living in a modern world, but being more in touch with our how we used to live, and especially like the foundational things like food and sunlight and sleep, then I think we're just going to be much healthier as people. And I know I'm experiencing that. I think that if you can get your food and your sleep somewhere nearer to how we used to, how we're supposed to, to eat and sleep as humans, then my health has dramatically improved, and I think that a lot of other people will experience that as well. So yeah, let's see how the next 10 years pan out. I want to kind of document my journey on that and see how I can implement our ancestral way of living more into this crazy modern world that we live in. And yeah, I will keep you updated on that. So check out my other videos, and I'll see you in the next one. See ya.